Stefon Diggs was kind of openly pretty angry when the Bills put up such a terrible performance in their playoff loss in the divisional round at home in the snow, supposed to be their territory, to the Cincinnati Bengals. It was not even close. I mean, the Bengals just marched down the field methodically, and from an offensive perspective, it was really hard for them to get going. And part of that too was Josh Allen had a really frustrating lingering injury that affected his throwing throughout the year. But part of this too, I think, is the departure of Brian Daboll. Ken Dorsey doesn't seem to be up to the task, and Stefon Diggs has way too much to do in that offense. I mean, Josh Allen's weapons are nothing compared to the other two guys in his stratosphere, Joe Burrow, and even Patrick Mahomes, who doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore, but his supporting cast is still better than that of Josh Allen. And so Diggs was expressing frustration, either of the fact that he wasn't getting the ball or the fact that there's too much pressure being put on him and he's not getting open enough by the Dorsey offense. Regardless, Diggs had been kind of cryptic on social media for the whole offseason. He showed up last week for his physical, and apparently everything went well. Then Tuesday hit. This is what Sean McDermott, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, had to say on Tuesday because Diggs apparently went home.
Morning. Good morning. All right, good morning. We'll go ahead and get started. Take your questions.
John, just a question about attendance. Is everyone here? And I know there's a lot of questions about Stefon.
Yeah, Steph is not here. Everybody else is here at the current time.
How concerned are you about that?
Oh, very concerned. Yeah, very concerned.
So it's not an excuse.
I'm not going to get into, and listen, I respect everyone's questions and what they want to know about our team. Right now, I'm not going to get into that anymore. So we'll talk about practice. Happy to do that. Happy to answer those questions, and we'll move forward from there.
Just what are you hoping to get out of these?
So he said he's, quote, very concerned. Now, that was last Tuesday. The next day, I guess Stefon Diggs, he's back in the facility after just not being there on Tuesday. And there being clearly a reason for, quote, concern. McDermott was very concerned. But then he comes out on Wednesday, and this is his response to questions about Diggs. And see if you can spot some inconsistencies, because there are some.
So I think there's a lot of things out there that aren't accurate. Let me be clear. Steph did everything that he was asked to do. He was here Monday and executed his physical on time. Steph reported yesterday, Tuesday, and reported for meetings, at which time we had a good conversation, great communication, and we got to a point yesterday where we just felt like we all needed a break and some space. And so I gave Steph permission to get some space and head out, and then picked up those conversations after practice. So let me make it clear: it was not Steph leaving unexcused. He was excused by me, and so those conversations have got us to what I think and believe is a great spot.
So he was very concerned on Tuesday, but then it's an excused absence on Wednesday, and they, quote, needed a break, which is something that you don't say after you had a friendly conversation, right? You need a break after it was a very difficult conversation. So at the same time, he's saying there's nothing to see here. It was an excused absence. But the previous day, he'd said he was concerned. The absence was a result of a conversation, meaning probably a fight. And then Diggs showed up the next day.
It is weird it is really weird to watch these two back to back and think about how his demeanor, Sean McDermott's demeanor changed in both clips where like he was being very tight-lipped in the first one and kind of a little standoffish about not wanting to disclose too much, and then coming back and being like, we were totally on the same page.
Oh yeah.
throughout.
No, he was pissed on that Tuesday in the first clip. And that's why he said he was very concerned. I mean, he let that usual like coach speaking to the media stoicism drop a little bit.
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
showed that
right.
he was pissed off. So they're trying to say like, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. But to me, and I don't know. I'm worried about the Buffalo Bills is really what I have to say about it. I'm a fan of Josh Allen. I'm a fan of this organization. Like it's super messed up that for the fans that they went to 4 straight Super Bowls. And I mean, one of them, thank you for losing to the Giants, but like that they never got one. And I love small market teams like this that have such rabid fan bases. So I root for the Bills to win the Super Bowl like every year when the Giants are not competitive, basically. I want Josh Allen to get that because I think he's already on the trajectory to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think he gets underrated by stat boys and people who like look at quarterback production in a vacuum. And Burrow and Mahomes have both been to the Super Bowl. Mahomes has won 2, and so he's kind of seen as the ugly stepchild of the 3. I think it's totally unfair because I think that the Bills they have a defensive head coach. McDermott is a defense guy, and I do think that has held the team back in ways that like were felt last year with the departure of Daboll, who clearly ran that offense. Then they promoted from within. It doesn't seem like Dorsey, at least as of now, is managing the offense in the same way that Daboll did. And I see this from as a Giants fan. We had the Giants had no receivers last year, and they were still able to get it done on offense with a subpar offensive line. Still, Andrew Thomas is the man, but the rest of the line was not performing that well. Daniel Jones is not a top 5 quarterback in this league. No name receivers, and they were able to scheme up really creative offenses. And I know that most on the day-to-day it was Kafka calling it, but still the loss of Daboll I think has affected this team, and now they're in a situation where they have less talent than the Miami Dolphins outside of the quarterback position in the division. Would you agree with that, Bradley? I mean, the Miami Dolphins have by miles. They have Bradley Chubb. They have Jalen Phillips, who was one of the.
Cumming,
I think he led the league in pressures last year.
Sealer, Christian Watkins on their defense.
I mean, they have
added Jalen Ramsey,
Tyreek Hill,
Jalen Waddle. I mean,
yeah. It's out of control.
Group. It's a great group, and I think but
the Jets too might have more talent on paper. They have the offensive and defensive rookies of the year.
Right. No. I what I was gonna say too is I think the very clear difference between Ken Dorsey and Daboll is that I don't even necessarily think Dorsey's not like. I don't think he's like uncreative or necessarily. I'm not ready to call him like a bad OC yet, but I think the clear difference between what Daboll has done at every stop in his career that Dorsey hasn't matched is that Daboll doesn't do the same thing at every stop. Like he wasn't replicating the Bills' offense with the Giants. He's really, really, he's really good at one, delegating to other personnel when he needs to, and 2, like with Mike Kafka, for example, or Wink Martindale, for example, and 2, he's very good at changing his game plan to fit the players he has, not the scheme that he wants to run. So I think he's a guy who's really, really able to do more with less, which is a great skill that not every coordinator may have. And right now,
it doesn't look like Dorsey can.
Right.
We don't know.
Right.
It's still 1 year.
And there were I think there were expectations that ultimately some people unfortunately did not meet, in the sense that Devin Singletary didn't really fully take a step forward in the backfield. Gabe Davis.
Yeah, he's in Houston now.
Gabe Davis, after his legend-making performance in the conference semifinals with the 4 touchdowns in the playoffs against the Chiefs, he kind of regressed back to the mean. He was not the complement to Diggs that maybe people thought he would be. So I think the addition of Dalton Kincaid will be interesting in the offense, but I'm always
But first year
wondering.
tight ends, it takes a while.
It takes a while. It takes a while for these guys to get to where they to get to mature enough or matriculate enough to get up to speed in the NFL. I don't think they have enough juice to satisfy Allen to where Allen doesn't immediately feel like he needs to go in a lot of situations into do-it-yourself mode.
But that's
hero
exactly
mode.
it, right? And that's why I get annoyed about the negative talk about Josh Allen is because he has to do more. And the years where he cut down on his interceptions were the years with Dayball. And this last year was his worst year since his rookie year, and that was when his offensive coordinator left. And the Bills just, I don't think people realize how they are kind of average talent-wise. And the guy that makes it all happen is Josh Allen and Diggs too. But Diggs has to do too much as well. That's the problem. And then just to return to like what is going on with the Buffalo Bills, they seem to all be so freaking tightly wound this year. I'm just concerned because there's a ton of pressure, and if they like falter, and why I brought up the Jets and the Dolphins, outside of the Dolphins, quarterback situation, they're a top 3 talented roster, honestly, in the league as of right now. But the division's going to be so tough this year, and the Bills' schedule is no cupcake. So, what happens if they fail to make the playoffs? I mean, Diggs is going to be like, get me the hell out of here. They're probably going to get fired. McDermott and Brandon Beane. So I just, I feel that I think honestly the Buffalo Bills' defense from a talent perspective has always been overrated. 2 years ago.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's the disparity between the amount of like so-called blue chip talent in terms of draft selection relative to actual production.
Like Ed Oliver's got an extension and he's been good.
But he hasn't been like game break. But even think about it this way too. Think about Ed Oliver as one of those guys. AJ Epinesa, first round pick, has not been second round pick, not been super dynamic. Gregory Rousseau has showed flashes, but not consistent down to down.
Yeah.
Von Miller, of course, injured, and obviously, I mean, amazing, but older, injured. Like, there's been a little bit more, I think, shine to the names of these guys than actual production on the defensive line. And it was tough, too. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer weren't healthy the whole year, kind of the fulcrums of their defense. Hyde and those guys aren't getting any younger necessarily, so I think that's this. I agree with you. I think this is I think there are definitely some watershed moments for this team to come. I think that they need to figure out. I just don't know if they did enough in the offseason to do it.
I really hope that they get DeAndre Hopkins for that reason. Like,
I think he would be like a perfect complement.
But I worry that
their receiving core.
This front office hasn't shown, outside of Von Miller, any urgency to make splash signings for this team to get them over the hump. There's a lot of solid on the team, but they're not going all in the way that other teams have been going all in around their like franchise quarterback, where this guy, Josh Allen, top 3 quarterback at his peak right now, like try to win the Super Bowl. And I just feel that the Bills, especially because it's not like a place like Las Vegas or LA where people want to go to and play as a destination. And I think you guys have got to make more. I mean, like, why didn't they give Odell Beckham Jr. the Ravens the Ravens contract, 1 year, $15 million? I mean, it's an overpay based on his injury history, but why not just go for it?
And I think what's interesting too is like you compare him to with Burrow's situation and with Mahomes' situation, and like it's difficult because I believe I don't know if it was it Brandon Beane who basically was like, we weren't shitty enough to get Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow.
Yes.
And like I get it to an extent what he's saying, but at the same time it's like it's also a matter of making the most out of your draft choices.
Yeah.
And hitting on those draft choices. And the Chiefs and the Bengals, to their credit, have consistently hit on their draft choices, and for the most part have made pretty smart signings after for example, after the Chiefs had to sort of get rid of Tyreek Hill to sustain financially Patrick Mahomes, they made the right choice. Mahomes or Hill, you take Mahomes, and you try and fit around as much as you can with everybody else in the on the team. And look what they did.
And then they won the Super Bowl.
They have Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, 2 mid-round picks making huge plays on their defense. They have Chris Jones being their best player on the defense, paying him a lot of money, but he deserves it. Karlaftis making impact plays as a first-round pick in the playoffs.
Yeah, late first-round pick.
Sky Moore scoring a touchdown. Kadarius Toney, that they were at least able to make use of him in the playoffs. Like they have not only. It's not just having Mahomes that's enough to make this team good.
Yeah.
They have made a conscious effort to do everything they can to extract the advantages out of every pick, every roster decision. Jalen Watson, who caught that one-handed pick in the playoffs, he's a 7th-round pick corner. Like you have to be lucky to be good, but you also have to be good to be lucky. You know, like there is something to that.
Yep,
and
exactly.
And I think the Bengals are sort of, after, of course, being such a spendthrift, cheap organization for so long, I think they realize what they have with Burrow and Chase and want to maintain it for as long as they can. But the Bills, I think, need to start acting with that sort of urgency with Josh Allen.
Yeah, you said it exactly right.